I really never use microphones, but I guess, am I audible everywhere?
Yeah!
Great. Okay, cool. So my talk is titled Everything. At first I wanted to sort of talk about general points in game development, general tips on how to make games and everything. Then I realized I don't have all that much experience compared to, well, some of the people here. So really giving general information might not be my best sort of take over here. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to give you generalist information. My take as sort of starting as a generalist, wanting to know everything. So that's what this presentation is going to be about. It's about some of the main goals that I've had in recent years and what I've learned from that. So, oops, you did say that.
Go back.
Chris, you're wrong. So my name is Ramon. I'm a third-year design student at the NHTV, and I'm working on Defend Your Friend, which you can play over there, which I think I'm still hearing the sound from because I never turned it off. Please play it. We'd love to hear your feedback. And I'm working on the Red Stair. We're usually referring to it as the apartment in-house, but working on that as well right now. So that's a picture of me right now. That's a picture of me about 5-6 years ago. I was a lot more edgy then, and I wanted to have straight hair, which was a terrible idea. But one big difference between the me of now and the me of then was that at that point, I didn't really care about knowing everything. I didn't really have a big goal or anything. I was in high school. I didn't really care about most of the subjects. Biology, chemistry, Spanish, French, I don't know. It wasn't very interesting to me. Luckily, one of the subjects that I did like was... Did I go back? I did go. Oops, I'm going too fast. One of the subjects that I did like was mathematics, which isn't a super popular subject amongst a lot of people, but one of my mathematics teacher gave a sort of career clinic on this program, which is called Scratch, which is like the most basic game-making thing. I'm not even sure if I can call it an engine, but it is super basic, but you can make interactivity, and I loved it. And I was like, wow, this is actually really cool. I also really liked to make drawings and whatnot at the time, so I try to, combine that and go, hey, this is something I really like. Then I had a goal. I wanted to make games and really wanted to know something about games. Didn't help me be interested in my subjects all that much. I really still didn't care about biology and chemistry. I just wanted to get it over with and make games. But I did end up going to the NHTV. And at first I thought that I was going to go and do visual arts because, I really liked making art. I really liked, just making drawings and everything. But then it was 3D, and I was like, how do you do 3D? That seems way too technical. I can't do that. So then there was this other introduction lecture about this thing called IGD. And does anyone have no idea what IGD stands for? Like, please raise your hand if you have not a clue what on earth that is. Thank you, Chris. So basically, it stood for Indie Game Development, and I only had it for the first year. So basically the way that I got to experience it was very much about being a generalist, which, in my opinion, is like taking the best of everything, but in limited amounts. So I learned a lot about design, about art, about programming, about production, and throughout that first year I really started to understand how extremely valuable it was to know all of them, to know the relation between art and programming, the art and design, basically to be able to communicate with people from different disciplines very well because I sort of understood what they were talking about. And it was at this point that I really wanted to know everything. One thing that I really started regretting at this point was not having this during high school because there's so much that I missed out on. And there are so many things that, not just within game development, but also a lot outside of that, that are really, really interesting for making games, such as architecture, such as like agriculture, such as, there are so many things that you can apply to games.
Agriculture.
So there are so many things that you can apply to games, and I started realizing that and really wanted to know all of it. So at this point, I was really acting as just a generalist, and there are some really cool points I discovered that I had. I was self-reliant. I could make a game by myself, pretty much. It's not going to be like the biggest game, but I could make it. But it may be even more important, I could understand other disciplines. So I could talk with an artist and understand sort of their pipeline, and if I would make something, make like a brief for a programmer, I could sort of understand what sort of variables I would then want from them, and generally have a lot more insight into how to communicate with them. But it also made it a lot easier to kind of understand other team members' worth and what you can expect from them. Because if you've got a character artist that tells you that they're not very good at modeling, but they're really good at sculpting, you're going to be able to expect organic creatures or characters. While if you don't really know, like sculpting, I don't know, you use clay, I don't know, that's weird. You're not going to be able to sort of expect that. And I think that's what, at least a baseline of generalist knowledge is really, really useful for it. It has, however, a pretty big sort of down point, which is if you don't have any specialization, then whatever role you pick in a team, if someone with a specialization wants it instead, they're going to have more experience and they're going to be the ones to get that role. So there is no role of a generalist usually, and at least not in bigger teams. So that basically, well, job security is a little bit less easy in there. Luckily, I discovered that there's something else I really like other than trying to know everything, and that's level design. I really love level design. So basically, throughout that first year, I started discovering that, and then I became what I later come to know as a T-shaped person. Does anyone not know Mr. T? No? Okay, good. So basically it stands for having a lot of different experience, but also having this area of expertise, this area of specialization that you're going for. In my opinion, in my situation, that was design. It's not really a T-shaped person, it's more like a weird funnel type thing, but that is just kind of awkward to say you're a funnel-shaped person, so we're going to just go for T-shaped. So at this point, I really wanted to know everything while also still specializing in something. So don't focus all my attention on all these sort of smaller parts, but also actually try and get something more specialized. So in terms of the pros, you don't really lose anything other than a bit of the flexibility. And it also becomes even more interesting because you can integrate the knowledge you have of general aspects, such as agriculture, into level design. You can, for example, make really cool things with architecture and agriculture are very integral to level design, but also something like biology. If you're making a level that's inside a human body or inside something else, there are so many different areas that you can use and apply to your specialized sort of area. And it pretty much removes the sort of big downfall of being a generalist. You no longer lack a specialization, you have something that you're good at, and you're still relatively flexible as you have more generalist knowledge. However, there is always a trade-off, and the trade-off in this case is time. I mean, at this point, you're basically trying to do two things at the same time, both of which are impossible on their own. You can't know everything, and you can't be, well, it's going to be very difficult to be like the best and the most expert at something. So trying both at the same time is kind of a bit of a challenge. Personally, I'm trying to use like my school time and my internship to really specialize, and then in free time I try to learn like C++ and other areas that are not my main focus, but could definitely help me continue with, well, development of things. So it's basically, that's very much of a personal thing. I'm not sure my way is the best, but it works for me. And then I want to quickly apply this sort of to whatever area of the games industry you end up going into. As this is called the Independent Games Gathering, I'm assuming a lot of you are interested in indie. But I think that this sort of having a generalist, at least a baseline of generalist knowledge, is super important. Also for the AAA industry. For indie, it's super important because let's say your programmer out of your team of 3 is ill for 2 weeks. You're not relying on them or waiting on them to make that vital functionality. And instead, you can actually make that yourself. You can sort of progress development without having to constantly wait for someone else. And in AAA, or in bigger indie teams, even in smaller ones, it's super, super important to understand the people that you're working with and really be able to communicate with them well. So that's why I think that there are a lot of good points to having a lot of generalist knowledge. I would definitely not advise just doing generalist knowledge, but yeah, that was my short talk. Thank you very much for listening. Also, please play Defend Your Friend.
It's really cool.